So today, I want to share. So, a lot of the times when, there's this JCC GCI. It's called the Jewish Community Council of Greater Coney Island, and they talk about trauma. So they say every trauma causes stress. Survivors of violent crime and trauma sometimes share the first feeling is relief to be alive. Then it's followed by those other feelings like stress, fear, anger, and trauma may lead someone to nonstop think about the traumatic event. There's a high level of arousal, alert, on guard, causing strong reactions to sound and lights around them. Common reactions is losing hope for the future, feeling distant, detached, or losing a sense of concern about others, being unable to concentrate or make decisions, feeling jumpy, getting easily startled at sudden noises, upsetting dreams and memories, work and school problems, avoiding places or things related to the experience, and then also stomach upset, trouble eating, trouble sleeping, feeling tired, very tired, pounding heart, rapid breathing, feeling shaky or sweaty, or using drugs, alcohol, smoking, or food, or more. Medical problems worsen, severe headache when thinking about it, or not upkeeping regular health care, diet, exercise, safe sex, feeling nervous, helpless, fearful, sad, shocked, or numb, unable to feel joy or love, easily agitated and upset, irritable or angry outbursts, feeling withdrawn, detached, not wanting intimacy, unable to trust others, trying to control things, fighting, feeling rejected, abandoned, blaming the self, having negative views of, the self or the world. And actually, unfortunately, most people who they say had been given help before they committed suicide, there were behavioral indicators, and there was themes, emotional indicators, personal circumstances, often after a trauma. So what are some suicides from the same organization? What are some behavioral indicators of suicide? Previous attempts, verbal or written statements expressing these suicidal tendencies, drugs and alcohol use, neglect of personal welfare and appearance, isolation, withdrawal, self-destructive behavior like self-inflicted burns, cuts, reckless or dangerous behavior, school failure, truancy in their youth, deteriorating school functioning or running away from home, disciplinary crisis, which could be anything like suspension or arrest, inappropriately saying goodbye, changes in normal behavior, whether it could be arguments or fights, and giving away personal belongings. And finally, unusual or prolonged crying. What are some emotional indicators? Depression, strong persistent bereavement concerns, panic attacks, anxiety disorder, hopelessness feelings, loss of emotions, apathy, inappropriate affect, loss of reality boundaries, hearing voices, or low self-esteem and extensive self-criticism. Personal circumstances could be an unwanted pregnancy, recent humiliating experience, serious illness from the self or family member, sexual identity concerns, family problems, child abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, domestic violence, homelessness or divorce or separation from family members, substance abuse or mental illness in the family, or an institutionalized parent, and family stress. And so usually what has to happen is an intervention, then measures, and then safety. So the most important thing throughout this is for the person to maintain contact with loved ones. And I want to share about how, some of these inner demons. So, I'll share for myself, and I also went to a 12-step meeting to workshop it. So these inner demons, I'm thinking, like, what causes me, it's the demon, it's what they call inner demons, like that, which is the energy that hasn't passed through yet. So we call it a trauma. And then the suicidality is when the demon says, we are that which is hope, has no hope, and it would be easier if it was over. So this is confronting for the sake of wisdom, patience, and focus. So my mother, when I was growing up, was very narcissistic. I felt like my father didn't leave the house. He was afraid to go outside because of all the bad things on TV. So that's how I felt. My mother also was watching TV. So I felt like I buried these parents living inside of me. And my fear of death sometimes is that I'll die in the wrong place at the wrong time and someone will do something desecrating or violating my corpse. But I think that might be a fear I inherited from my parents. And then regarding my own blessings, some I don't believe in. Like, I earned some of my own blessings, and some of them I don't even believe in. So sometimes the one who's talking may be my mother, father, and me. Like, if I don't listen to them and hear what they want to say, they might talk through me, like where I think it's me. And I might be blessing people, or same with other people. Sometimes they say blessings, they don't even believe it. Like there could be this sense of self that's not this. So we're saying there's a version of the self that's now in conflict with. So it's this inherited self that was like maybe the parent living inside, buried, and then like to me, some of the beliefs that came along with this in ingestion of the parental identity was that my time is worth less than others, and I'm less worthy of being impressed. I'm needy, selfish, to need to be appreciated and get gratitude, and all I deserve is really condemnation, insults, degradation, respect. And another thing that became a belief that was ingested with the parental living is that none of this is real, that I woke up from some kind of coma, like a wake-up call, and this isn't my real life. Sort of like I was living their life in certain ways, and yet I'm the cause. Everything stems from me unconsciously, consciously, like nothing else even really exists. This two-sided street of what a wake-up call really is, the light and the dark. And then like transitioning from the sleep to the wake. So another thing I ingested a belief was that someone would only be pretending to be interested in me because they don't really like me, but that I was so desperate for the unavailable one to change and choose me that I stayed so long waiting, hoping not to be discarded. And I think of my parents being together for 11 years, when I was 11, well, almost 12. And then also like the fact that they never chose anyone else in the many years after from that divorce. Also like in terms of that identity issue with thinking that the parents, everything they say comes true, and then ingesting that version of them, not knowing who's the authority, like I mentioned, like that I'm the cause of everything, and then at the same time, like I've ingested this version of a parent that's the cause of everything in me, where I think I am, and everything that I say will occur at some point or another, eventually, one way or another. But also the self-blame, like the example that I could give, or like the fact that if I was better, like if I had been a virgin till I connected with somebody, then they would have been my husband. Let's say this, versus like the fact that the life I lived, like there's something like irredeemable or broken. But when we get a chance, like where we passed away, like I had an experience. So basically, I've had near-death experiences, and my most recent one was just a few months ago. I think it was in November, and I felt I passed away for a second the night before that I wrote this. But I said I wasn't ready because I had to help people. I was on the train from the Bronx Zoo, and I said, "What's happening?" a few times to this man, Aaron, I was with. He later said he didn't even notice what I was going through, and I felt I died all alone for that moment. I actually felt like a faint, like my soul was leaving and my body was slumping, and I collapsed for a second. And I had a lot of faint moments around that time from being like on this morning cycle. I was trying to adapt to the situation and intensity, and I didn't want to die alone with this man or in public either. Like I just, like this, what I was talking about, like this fear that somebody's going to ruin my body. It's like probably something I inherited in some way, because I, like in being alive, I have to trust the other living people, like finding a way to trust. So who you love is who you die with, who you trust to die from the body with. Like they have only their agency with your body, no control except the bigger picture, because at that moment I can't. So how to die like a normal loser in a way. I was thinking like how to just die like a regular normal loser, so no one violates or desecrates my body. Why did this, I feel like, why does Aaron misbehave to keep me in the world, like with him? Like, so in other words, like keeping me like a hostage, like the inner demon says, like I have to commit to him even when I'm, like having to deal with somebody behaving against me. And one time I told him that I wish it was the other Aaron who lived and that he died, because somebody else passed away and his name was Aaron also. Instead, because I'm so sick and tired of how I felt victimized and violated by him, and it often made me wish for death, and that's why a lot of this was on my mind. So when we talk about deprivation, I went to an OA meeting, a 12-step meeting, doesn't matter which, to learn about it, because I don't want to eat food that just temporarily takes the edge off, but it just numbs me for a while, and then I still have to face, that, I really wanted a pure intention, like oneness, like balance, but instead I felt like a lot of miserable from playing house with different people for control. And then for understanding, I felt like I wanted to learn how to, there wasn't a room to disagree. It always felt jeopardizing. There wasn't room to like pivot, share space, adapt. And I craved this unconditional belonging, like where instead of it was like comply or lose your portion or place, which happened with my family, my friends. It's not how I have to live anymore, because I could keep doing me and letting others do theirs, and self-fulfillment. Since I struggle with like outreach, each one has to be able to earn their own, so they feel that their work, their play, their healing, etc. satisfies them. So they don't need me to fit in, like cut myself to size, because they're using me. Like, oh, I need this, so I have to cut you into that shape so I could use you. But actually, in terms of generosity, in fellowship, what we talk about, it's like, instead of co-rescuing, even though we were like those who felt less than, it's sort of this sense that the people who maybe felt the most inadequate could have compassion for someone who's feels inadequate. Like the problem child could understand the problem child and tapped into this generosity and abundance, like the poor people who give the most. So, like, what I was wondering was, like, now why couldn't I comply? Like, for freedom, for independence, does it mean I'm less than because I don't want to follow their rules? Or is it that I lack the skills of sacrificing for the authority or dominance of the group? Have I been burned out from overgiving, overcompensating, overaccommodating, overappeasing? Am I unconsciously it's also called overfunctioning in short. Am I unconsciously expecting others to make up for my mistakes by giving me more dominance, to make my rules more acceptable, to comply, to appease, to accommodate, to give and compensate because I did it? And what I want to end with is like in this sense of a multifaceted recovery. So my inner shy, delicate side, the fear of men, the fear of power, fear of aggression, fear of strength, really needs tenderness, not to have to rely on my own resiliency all the time. It wants to also express itself in its tenderness. So the version of me that wanted to have someone who's interested in me, wants to know me, is curious to know me, the inner me, before I die. Like the original wound, the father neglect that I didn't experience mattering to him. So as I become more present and available to myself, and, in terms of what I mentioned, the inherited maternal neurosis, narcissism, so this masculine feminine union internally to fit through the eye of the needle together, even though it seems my soulmate must have died by now. That's what I told myself so I could do this work. So just, anyone to work with, I was really like, okay, so maybe I don't have a soulmate, but isn't there someone I could work with, who could accept that I may have messed up so bad, in terms of my self-worth or like skills, social, that all I get is the leftovers so bad, like in messing up rather than realizing that when full it could be superiority, when empty inferiority. This is the intimacy, vulnerability issues and sincerity issues, but finding new ways to support and be helpful. So I don't have to be like the full one. Sometimes I could help by just being there with also what I'm going through. And to my own detriment, I didn't make space to trust the wisdom of the divine masculine or see his awesomeness, his abilities and his greatness because of, the ego. And instead of not afraid of death, as a personal dissolution, it's pure. The intentions are good for choices, for picking, for actions. Like, what kind of life do I want to live? And what do I want? And, if I want to be chosen, I want to choose myself. If I want to be precious and possessed, I want to be precious and possess myself. I want to be special to myself, coveted, dedicated, and devoted to. But I would isolate because I wanted someone to do it from the outside and it wasn't happening. And I had a lot of blocks. I was afraid of sharing, impressing, disappearing, dissolution, and would jump to conclusions, write someone off, discard. And there was a lot of triggers for that, whether it felt injustice or like someone was possessing what was mine. And, often I would even add like interruptions, or people being dishonest, what we would say like, rewriting history, they call it. And instead, this aloneness that I'm learning about is actually the being myself, even if no one's there. It's freedom to never really be alone, and I'm actually able to keep myself better company, and that's what I wish for everybody. All the best. Bye-bye.